Hey, you're listening to the Riverdale podcast. This is episode number 216. My name is Jonathan. Welcome to lovely Riverdale, USA. Hey folks, this is an Archie Comics fan podcast. We update every Saturday morning, and every week we break things up 4 ways. First up is the book of the week. That's the comic book I read this week. Sometimes it's a new comic book, sometimes it's an old comic book, but it's always an Archie comic book. We move then to the news of the week. That's what happened in the world of Archie in the week since our last podcast. Then on to new releases. That's what came out this past Wednesday, what will be coming up this coming Wednesday. And we're going to wrap up today taking a look at the July solicitations from Archie. So that's what the show looks like this week. I want to take a moment before we jump into things and remind everyone that you can contribute to the show at patreon.com/Riverdale podcast. You can head over there and make a monthly donation. With that monthly donation, you're helping us get to goals, specific things that we're trying to get to with the podcast. Also kicks in money to pay for hosting costs, make this happen every single week for everybody for free. And launching in May, there will be a monthly video specifically for folks who are contributing at Patreon. So you can go over, kick in $1 a month, $10 a month, however much you feel you can spare for the cause. And I want to thank everyone who is contributing now. It's a big help in getting this show together and put out every single week. So big thanks to everybody who's contributing. Thanks to everyone who's considering it. And again, that's patreon.com/Riverdale podcast. Let's jump into it and get right into the book of the week. All right, this week's book of the week is World of Archie Comics Double Digest number 58. There's a bunch of great stuff in here, so I'll try to breeze through some of the highlights real quick. First up, as always, there is a brand new lead story. I guess I should mention a cover on this issue by Dan Parent, inks by Bob Smith, colors by Tito Pena. Of Archie playing baseball. Of course, it is springtime. Here in Riverdale, so baseball's happening, and Veronica's out there in a tiny red dress and black heels, distracting Archie from his duties at bat. Though I'll amend that statement a little bit and say that Veronica can wear whatever she wants to a baseball game, or a practice or whatever's going on here. She should feel free to wear whatever she wants. Archie, in fact, is just incapable of performing his daily routines with Veronica around. And that's his own problem to solve, frankly. Jumping into the lead story, the brand new story for this issue, Betty and Veronica in Thrills and Chills. This was scripted by James Gartler, not a name I'm familiar with. Pencils on this story by Fernando Ruiz. I don't believe this is the last story we'll see penciled by Fernando Ruiz, but I think we are into our countdown of the final stories we're going to see from him here at Archie. Inks on this story by Bob Smith, colors by Glenn Whitmore, letters by Jack Morelli. This was a very sweet story. I enjoyed this quite a bit, and I don't remember ever having seen a story that starred this particular cast of characters. Those cast of characters being Betty, Veronica, and Mrs. Andrews, who I believe her name is Mary Andrews, right? Or at least it was on the old radio show. I assume her name is still Mary Andrews. But Betty and Veronica show up at the Andrews household and find that Archie and his dad have gone fishing and left Mary with a whole bunch of laundry, a bunch of chores around the house. So instead of tackling that at the moment, Betty and Veronica invite her along for their day of fun at an amusement park. It's really, really great. I won't tell you too much about the plot or what goes on, because I think anyone who reads this is going to really enjoy it. It's fun, it's playful, And there's some nice heart to it. There's just I guess there's just a sense of community to it that I like a lot. I don't know that as a teenager I would have hung out with my friend's mom or even like the person I was dating's mom or whatever. But that's just part of the sort of idyllicness of Riverdale, I guess, is that everybody hangs out with everybody, everybody gets along with everybody, and it doesn't seem weird at all to hang out with your boyfriend's mom at the amusement park all day. Awesome. And maybe Betty and Veronica teach Mary a thing or two, and Mary maybe teaches them a thing or two. It's very, very sweet. I enjoyed that story quite a bit. Let's jump ahead a little bit. There's a great story in here written by Kathleen Webb and drawn by the great Jeff Schultz. I always love to see Jeff Schultz drawing Betty and Veronica. And this story is called Isn't It Obvious? It involves Betty convincing Veronica to do some gardening. And there is a particular moment in here that I've really never seen quite as blatantly in a story, which is Betty and Veronica making mention that they are in a comic book. I feel like this has happened very, very rarely, and I wasn't expecting it in a story such as this. But Veronica's about to make a phone call to solve this problem that they're in, and Betty says, "Who are you calling?" And Veronica says, "Somebody I should have called into this story 16 panels ago." Fantastic. So acknowledging that they're A, in a story, and B, in a comic book story with panels. I thought that was really charming. Otherwise, a fun, cool story. Always nice to see, as I said, Jeff Schultz drawing Betty and Veronica. But really fun to see that sort of meta stuff. The next panel, of course, Betty's looking right, breaking that fourth wall, looking right at us in the audience. And I love that kind of stuff. I don't know if it counts as meta necessarily, but fictional characters being aware of their surroundings, I think, is always a lot of fun. Looking ahead here, I want to briefly mention the very first sort of panel of Archie running in the fast lane, in which Archie and Betty are handing out cups of water to folks running in the Riverdale Run Marathon. And who is there in the front of the panel but Victor Gorelick, or at least Stan Goldberg's drawing of Victor Gorelick there. Kind of taking the lead there. Not many people ahead of him. And there's someone in the audience holding a big sign that says, "Go Vic." Always nice to see a cameo from the Archie staffers, especially Victor, because he's such a rad guy. And story in here I want to talk about called Can You Believe This? Or Canoe Believe This. It's about a canoe, I guess. I'm not sure how to pronounce it within the realm of that pun. But this was a story written by Mike Pawlowski, drawn by Bob Bowling, with inks by Al Milgram. And I love Bob Bowling. I love Bob Bowling. We could end the sentence there. But I love when he draws teenage Archie. Of course, we know him for years drawing little Archie stories, but I always like when he draws teenage Archie, and especially Mary and Fred Andrews. This story is very much like a little slice of domesticity, as Mary brings up the fact that Fred and Archie aren't using their canoe very often. It's just hanging out in the backyard. And that leads us to just like a series of flashbacks as Fred and Archie spend, a few minutes talking about all the great times they had in the canoe. And it's just an opportunity for us to sort of reflect on them being a family. We get to see them at various stages and ages out on this pond having a good time. There's one particular panel where Archie is, grown up, maybe not as old as he is now, maybe a little younger. And he's out on sort of a date in the moonlight in this canoe with Betty. And the trees that Bob Bowling has put in here are beautiful, and there's like an owl. It has like a very like Berenstain Bears kind of vibe to it. The trees on either side of the scene are sort of like folding in. It makes for a very, very beautiful imagery. I really like it. And then within the story, Mary comes out to see what's taking them so long in deciding whether to get rid of this canoe. And we have then a series of Mary's like fond remembrances of this canoe. So I guess one of those stories that's just not afraid to be hard on sleeve, not afraid to be a little hokey. And at the end of the day, that's some of the stuff I like best in reading Archie comics, is the really sweet moments that you're not going to find in a lot of other comics. So I really enjoyed Can You Believe This? Also, I should mention the third panel features Mary handing Fred a newspaper, and on the one of the headlines, the paper is rolled, so it's not the largest headline, but above the fold in the Riverdale newspaper is prune fungus in Florida, which is absolutely amazing. Absolutely love that makes the above the fold news in Riverdale. Next story I want to talk about is the case of the missing dolls. This was scripted by George Gladier, penciled by Stan Goldberg, inks by Rudy Lepic, colors by the great Bill Yoshida. I like this story for a number of reasons. I won't get into too much of it. I like that it's a mystery. It is Betty and Archie solving the mystery of these doll collectors, these two doll manufacturers, and a collection of dolls from which things are being stolen. And it's very much the classic mystery kind of scenario in which you're presented with a bunch of possibilities. You're presented with a bunch of folks who had motive to commit the crime. And then ultimately, Betty is the one who finds out what's going on. A couple things I really like about this is that when the story starts, Betty and Archie are at a meeting, the monthly gathering of the Sherlock Holmes Club. Of course, I'm sure there's no mention of this prior or since. It only fits to work with this story that for 10 seconds of their teenage years, they hang out with the Sherlock Holmes Club. And it seems to be people of varying ages. There's a very old gentleman who's there who, in fact, runs one of these doll companies that they meet and then go off on this adventure. So I really have no idea. And everyone's wearing a variation on a Sherlock Holmes hat, what we quintessentially know to be a Sherlock Holmes hat. Really, really funny. Also in this story, the doll maker in question makes the Susie doll, which I assume is a throwback to the old Susie comics of the 50s that Archie published. And also, they make mention and show several times in this story that this manufacturer also makes the Archies dolls. And there are like displays of each of the members of the Archies in doll form, all with their respective instruments. I have no idea why. I have absolutely no idea why. I feel like a scholarly paper could be written about the strange overlap of the Archie kids, the Riverdale kids, and then also their like rock star personas as the Archies, because they seem to be the same people, except that when they're the Archies, they go on world tours, and when they come back to Riverdale, they go back to like having no money. It's baffling. But it's one of those idiosyncrasies that makes us love Archie comics all the more. Great story in here called Stamp Out, starring Archie and Jughead. This story was written by Frank Doyle with pencils by the great Harry Lucy. I'm only getting the last name Epp. I want to say Mike Epp. I'm not sure. Gosh, I don't know. Someone with the last name Epp inked this. Bill Yoshida on letters and Bill Grossman on coloring. This is classic Harry Lucy art, so you can't go wrong, first of all. And second of all, involves Mr. Lodge throwing Archie out of Lodge Mansion, not once, but twice, which I love. I can't wait for the coffee table book. Maybe I'll have to make it myself. The coffee table book of Archie being thrown out of Lodge Mansion. I actually really can't get enough of that. Now let's jump ahead a bit. There are a couple of Archie One stories, which are fantastic. One in which, primitive caveman Archie makes a punching bag and attempts to learn how to fight, I guess, which is fantastic. One in which they create the wheel and don't really know what to do with it. It's been a while since I've read any Archie One stories. I guess for anyone who doesn't know, those are the stories in which Archie and his friends are cast as sort of cave people in the quintessential, not quite Flintstonian sense, as in they don't have the sort of modernity of houses and cars and things like that. But they're very much wearing, animal furs, and there are sort of those winks to the camera of modern things happening in this sort of primitive setting. That's a poor job of explaining a very simple and great thing, which is Archie One. So I had a really good time reading those stories. And the last thing I'll mention are a couple of one-page gags involving Jughead, one of which is called Test Zest, in which we find just Jughead being crafty. Jughead, not the best student because he doesn't put in the effort, but where does he put in the effort? He puts the effort into making a note that he is passing to Archie that he intends for the teacher to intercept, and the note, which he has intended for the teacher to see in his passing it to Archie, says, "Archie, I hope you will sign my petition to get a salary increase for our richly deserving teachers. Signed, Jughead." Brilliant. Jughead buttering up the teacher to get a better grade. Just quintessentially, I mean, this is a 5-panel story, a single page. Looks like Sam Schwartz art. And just encapsulates Jughead. Encapsulates where he's going to prioritize things, where he's going to put his effort. And his effort is going to be put into sort of beating the system, which is awesome. It reminds me very much of what Chip Zdarsky is doing in the Jughead book now. I love the way that Jughead behaves when he is kind of shirking the system, shirking responsibility, but doing so craftily. As he does in this last story, I'll mention, again, a one-page gag, Mow Woe, M-O-W-W-O-E. He's being asked by his neighbor to mow this guy's lawn, and Jughead just sort of like keeps ratcheting up the price. I guess he says it's going to be $5 an hour. The guy says he'll pay for it. And then Jughead comes back and says, well, there are fringe benefits, hospitalization, Social Security, pension plans. And finally, he drives the guy off. And Jughead, the final panel is Jughead escaping the scene, saying, "Woo, that was close." Again, looks like Sam Schwartz art, maybe late Sam Schwartz art, or maybe with a different inker. Looks a little different than his usual art. But a great story, again. Just Jughead using his quick wit and abilities to get out of work and responsibilities. Love it. I love the World of Archie digest because it is very much the world of Archie. We get a bunch of different stories from a bunch of different parts, different eras, different characters, different scenarios. Would have loved to have seen more stuff beyond the realms of Riverdale, maybe into That Wilkin Boy or Lil Jinx or things like that. But for what it was, great story. Great stuff in there. A bunch of Stan Goldberg in this issue as well. Lots of good stuff. Always a good time to sit down and read a digest. Sit in bed, sleep in, and read Archie comics, which is what I did today. So there you have it. World of Archie Comics Double Digest number 58, our book of the week. Oh man, I just looked at the time. I sure went on and on about the book of the week. So we'll keep this pretty brief. Last week, we talked about the big announcement that Adam Hughes' Betty and Veronica is launching. It's coming out July 20th, I believe. So it is coming. It is upon us. Comes out just as San Diego Comic-Con kicks off this summer. And we got a slow trickle of releases of the various variant covers coming out for that book. And early this past week, I believe Monday or Tuesday, we got the full list, the full look so far at all of the variant covers. I got an email that's it's got them all listed, covers A through Y, which, if I'm doing my math properly, is 25 different covers for Betty and Veronica #1, including some really great stuff, some really great creators. Colleen Coover, Cliff Chang, Stephanie Buscema, Erica Henderson, Ramon K. Perez, Chip Zdarsky, Chrissy Zullo, bunch of great stuff. It's also come to my attention through Facebook and different creators mentioning that there will be other covers as well. These are the ones going to mass retail. And then, as they've done with other books in the past, especially Archie #1 last summer, there were different regional covers, different covers for specific shops or specific chains of shops, things like that. So there are going to be, there's probably going to be a Midtown exclusive or a Mile High exclusive, some of those bigger profile shops, maybe Newberry Comics. I assume that some larger shops like that will have their own exclusive covers. Andrew Peapoy mentioned that he's doing a cover for a specific chain. I forget which one it was. So there will be more. So keep an eye out. If you're trying to get them all, start saving now because there's going to be a ton. So we'll leave it there. That's the news of the week. Tons and tons of variant covers coming out for July's Betty and Veronica #1. All right. New releases for this past Wednesday, the 20th of April. Just one. Just our book of the week. This week's book of the week, World of Archie Comics Double Digest number 58. Looking ahead to this coming Wednesday, the 27th of April, we will get the Archie 1,000-page comics 75th anniversary bash. And obviously that's in addition to the long line now of 1,000-page digest. And this one being devoted to the 75th anniversary. Probably a lot of stories, a lot of eras and decades. Haven't seen it yet. Sounds great to me. Archie Comics Annual Digest number 268 is out next week, as well as Sonic Universe number 84. Digital exclusives have seemed to come to a halt in the recent weeks. I haven't heard anything, haven't seen anything, haven't gotten any emails about it. I'm not sure what's going on. But I guess we'll wait and see if they come back, because they sure are fun to talk about, and they sure are fun to have in a review. So we'll see what happens with that in the future. Until then, those are your new releases for this past Wednesday, the 20th, and this coming Wednesday, the 27th. All right. The July solicitations from Archie Comics are out. Just came out this week. So I wanted to do just a quick rundown, as I like to do every month, and talk about some of the highlights that I found. As you may or may not know, comic shops order their comics 3 months in advance, so these solicitations come out for the books coming out 3 months in the future. And we look at them, check them out, and talk about what we're excited about coming up. At the top of the solicitations, the stuff everybody's most excited about, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina number 6th. Also intended to be out. I don't see it in this solicitation, but it has been mentioned that Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, the first collection, collecting the first 5 issues, will be out on that same date. I don't see it in this solicitation, though it has been mentioned in some press materials that have come out, so I guess we will wait and see what happens with that. Also in the solicitation, Archie number 10, a few variant covers on there. That series continues with Mark Waid, Veronica Fish, Andrei Szymanowicz, Jen Vaughn, and Jack Morelli as the creative team. As we talked about, Betty and Veronica number 1, with its 25-plus covers, will be out in July. Also, the switch-up in the art team with Jughead starts with Jughead number 8, although it might start with 7. Little bit of a spoiler. So I'll give you a mild spoiler warning here. The solicitation mentions Mr. Weatherby, which gives us hope that in the coming issues of Jughead he will vanquish Mr. Stanger and bring peace back to Riverdale, which I'm excited to see. Then into the digest, the Archie Back to School annual. Oh my goodness, it's amazing that summer has yet to start. But in July, here comes the Back to School annual. Cover on that by Dan Parent. A bunch of the stories by Dan Parent. He seems to be one of the few artists and writers who has been retained in that sort of purge of talent over the last month or two. So I'm excited to see more Dan Parent stuff. Always, he's a cool guy. I like his art. I talked to him last week about his creator-owned book with Fernando Ruiz. But I would love to see more diversity of creators in these stories. I know that it appears that they have a backlog of stories sort of sitting in shelves that they'll be sitting in drawers or wherever they are, waiting to be published. So we will get a number of different creators over the coming year or so, I assume. But I assume that those stories will dry up at some point. I guess we'll wait and see. But Archie Back to School annual number 271, brand new story written and drawn by Dan Parent. Betty and Veronica double digest number 245, again, script and art by Dan Parent. And Betty and Veronica Friends annual number 249 has a Dan Parent cover on it, and a script by Alex Simmons with art by Pat and Tim Kennedy. Definitely looking forward to that. And I spoke too soon here in the solicitations, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, the first volume. So there it is, 160 pages, on sale July 27th. So I spoke too soon. There it is on the list. Also, brand new Sonic the Hedgehog trade, Waves of Change, that collects Sonic the Hedgehog number 260 through 263. Also, Sonic the Hedgehog number 284 and Sonic Universe number 88 in those solicitations. And we wrap up this month's solicitations with World of Archie Comics Digest number 61, with a brand new story with a script by Paul Kupperberg and art by Pat and Tim Kennedy. So there you have it. I guess not a lot we didn't know about prior. So not a lot of big surprises there, but it's going to be great getting some more Sabrina. It's going to be nice to be able to look at that trade collection, or be able to buy that trade collection for a friend and give it to them, because any fan of Sabrina the Teenage Witch is going to be very surprised about what they find in the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. So I guess that'll wrap things up. That is my quick look at the July solicitations from Archie Comics. All right, folks, thanks for sticking with me on that extra long review at the top of the show. Always a lot to talk about in the digest and double digests. I want to remind everyone that you can get in touch with the show. You can send an email to riverdalepodcast@yahoo.com. You can call and leave a voicemail at 573-427-2443. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter, Google Plus, if you're really pressed for a place to find us. Next week, I will be running down a top 5 list, and I wanted to give a quick shout out to you guys, or a quick heads up to you guys. So if you want to get your lists in as well, I'll share those on the show next week. Next week, we're going for the top 5 characters outside of the sort of Riverdale 5. So outside of Betty, Veronica, Archie, Reggie, Jughead, any of those peripheral characters, any of those family members, headed outside of Riverdale into Greendale, into Josie and the Pussycats, into any of that stuff. So any of your top 5 characters outside of those sort of Riverdale 5. So I'm going to think long and hard about my list. You can do the same. You'll find a topic for this at Archie Comics, at archiefans.com. I'll put a topic up for that. I'll also post this on Facebook. So keep an eye out for that. Give it some thought. I would love to share your list alongside mine next week. I am going to wrap things up there, guys. A big thanks to everyone who's contributing over at patreon.com/Riverdale podcast. You're helping to keep things rolling more than you know. Thank you guys so much. If you're interested in contributing, that's where you got to go. And get ready for exclusive video content coming every month starting in May. So get ready for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. I guess that's everything, guys. We'll wrap things up there. Thank you guys so much for listening. My name is Jonathan, and I'll see you again next week right here in lovely Riverdale, USA.